This conference
This
will now be
conference will now
recorded.
be recorded. Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is July 14th, 2021. Hard to believe we're halfway through the year. I mean, it's like, I don't know. And it's like we've been open for 2 weeks without masks, and it's like I'm still getting used to it, but it's such a pleasure. And for those of us who were able to go to Joe's event last night, I think that was really great. I know Joe is probably very grateful that we were able to get there and give him some feedback on his house. It's pretty exciting, and we should probably have it today incoming soon, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to be starting I'm going to try to do something new SEO wise, connected with new listings. In that I will be blogging about them when people are getting us the authorization to do it and coming soon. So it's posted from us before it's posted anywhere else. And so that way, I understand with SEO, once you post the first time on a property, you own it. So it should come up to the top of any search. And so that's kind of a interesting thing. I'm going to try this with Joe's listing as soon as I get the photos and the remarks. But anyway, I'm kind of excited about that. We'll get going on that. But what I'd like to start this meeting with today is by sharing, before we get going into the market report, something that I think is extremely important. We've been incorporating this into a number of our deals recently, and it's called the, find it real quick here. There we go. It is the buyer's advisory. So I'm going to be doing this little quick 7.5-minute video first. And this is Jenny Pakula. She's going to introduce herself in here. If you don't know who she is the Oregon Association of Realtors CEO. And she has been an attorney, so she can introduce her.
I am Jenny Pakula, CEO of the Oregon Association of Realtors. Prior to becoming CEO, I served as legal counsel for OAR for 15 years.
I
I
navigated a
navigated
myriad
a
of
myriad
legal
of
issues
legal issues
impacting your
impacting your
business and the
business and the
industry in
industry in
general.
general.
We look forward to bringing you clarity on a variety of legal issues, along with helpful risk management tips on our new show, The Legal Brief. We will provide information that will help educate you about current issues, reduce risks in your daily practice, and protect you and your clients. The Legal Brief is designed to provide you with updates and answers to the many issues that can surface in a transaction. By keeping yourself informed, you can spot the issues coming down the track, hopefully soon enough to get out of the way. Today, I want to talk about the Oregon Property Buyer Advisory, a tool designed to help control business risks. This is not a new tool, but the importance of using this tool cannot be overstated. What is the Buyer's Advisory? Why is it important? And how can it help you and your clients? The Buyer Advisory is a step toward using client service as a risk management tool. Most risk management tools you use are based on disclosures. Disclosures are tools designed to protect agents from misrepresentation claims brought by buyers the agent does not even represent. Disclosures do work by taking away the buyer's ability to claim they reasonably relied on something an agent said or failed to say about the property. Disclosures don't work so well when the buyer is bringing a claim against their own agent. That kind of claim is based on the agent's affirmative duties to their own client. Claims by buyers against their own agents are lack of diligence complaints. The buyer in such a claim is saying the agent had a duty to protect the buyer from making stupid mistakes. They are the "you didn't tell me I was making a mistake" claims. Because of the high fiduciary duties an agent owes their principal, such claims can be very successful. In fact, the only good defense is to show that the buyer had sufficient information and acted against the advice of the agent. This is where the buyer's advisory comes into play. Why should you provide every buyer you represent the buyer's advisory? Because buyers are riskier than sellers. Why? Well, at the end of the deal, the seller will have a pocket full of money and the buyer has a used house, which is more likely to have problems. The used house is a more complex asset than the money. That means the buyer is going to want to know and depend on a lot more information. All the seller wants to know is how much am I going to get? The buyer wants to know that the used house is as good a value as the money. And although buyer agency has been around for decades, we only seem to worry about the legal duties you have. Because of this, we overlook the much more important question of the scope of representation provided to clients. The duties are set by law, so there's nothing you can do about them. What you do have control over is what services will be provided and what services won't be provided. A buyer needs two kinds of information. One, information about real estate transactions, and two, information about the scope of their relationship with their agent. That's why the buyer advisory is about information. Let's dig in. The buyer's advisory is full of information and advice for buyers. It is not a disclosure. It is intended to be a web-based tool containing hyperlinks to direct the buyer to more information. It is everything anyone could think of that a buyer ought to know before purchasing real property. Think of it as a very condensed book about real property purchase sitting on a library shelf waiting to be used. The buyer's advisory covers more than 30 topics in two broad categories. The first category covers property condition, inspection, and investigation. You will find topics covering home inspections, repairs and remodels, sewer and septic systems, wood stoves, mold, well flow tests, and so many more. Each topic contains an explanation of why the subject is important, where the buyer can get more information, any necessary warnings, and what the agent's responsibilities are with respect to the subject. The second category covers document inspection and investigation. Here the buyer is given information about the myriad of documents that can surface in a real estate transaction, beginning with MLS data and progressing through various forms and documents to lead-based paint disclosures. The advisory explains the agent's involvement and, where necessary, warns the buyer about potential pitfalls. The advisory is intended to be very detailed but concise. Why have a buyer's advisory, you ask? Aren't we just telling buyers how to do it? Well, the short answer is yes and no. There is a great deal of information in an advisory that a buyer might find useful in purchasing property without using an agent, but it is hardly going to make a person off the street an expert. In fact, if anything, it should make them think twice about trying to purchase real estate on their own. The bottom line, any marginal gain for the do-it-yourselfers is far outweighed by the benefit real estate licensees can gain. Why? Because expectations really are resentments under construction. When you say nothing to buyers about what is really going on or what you can and cannot do for them, they assume everything is fine and you got it all handled. And that's wonderful as long as everything goes right. However, when things go wrong, that same buyer is going to blame you. What they will say is exactly what the advisory is designed to prevent. You didn't tell me. Because the advisory is just information sitting on a website, there are a number of ways it can be used. Agents can visit the site, download the content, and then use the information as they see fit when dealing with your buyer clients. So instead of pointing all clients to the information or copying it and giving it to them, agents should be aware of what is in the advisory and borrow from it as necessary to explain things to your clients. Like any advice given to clients, that advice should be documented in writing. The second way the advisory can be used is as a client resource. Rather than make the translation from the advisory to the client, you can direct your client to the full advisory or to the particular section that is relevant. Always remember to document that you suggested to your client that they go to the advisory for specific information. This is a voluntary tool for you to use. The buyer advisory is designed to help you serve your client by helping them understand the home buying process and all the potential pitfalls a buyer can encounter during this process. But more importantly, the advisory outlines what the clients can expect from the services you will provide. It is a tool for showing diligence in representing your buyer client. You can view and download the buyer advisory on the OAR website by visiting the link shown on the screen. Thank you for tuning into this month's Legal Brief. We are excited to bring you more risk management videos every month.
So, the reason why I brought this up today is two reasons. First of all, to let you know about the wonderful resources available on the OAR website. They are phenomenal tools. And there's a whole series of these Legal Brief videos up there, everything from the property disclosure to, obviously this. The reason why I wanted to talk about the buyer advisory, however, today is just from a risk management idea. What's happening right now? Here it is, the buyer advisory. I pulled down the link. We are having in our crazy market right now an awful lot of times in which buyers are waiving all kinds of stuff. They are waiving appraisals, they're waiving home inspections, they're waiving, anything to get themselves out there. The assumption of risk connected with this, as much as we may sit them down and say, you're waiving the home inspection, do you realize that if that home, if you move into that home and you find out that roof is shot, you're waiving the opportunity to have, before you purchase that property, to have someone tell you that. So you're going into this purchase kind of with your eyes shut. You don't have that knowledge when you buy this property. And when someone goes into a house and now that they own it, they know the roof is shot, there's mold in the walls, there's $50,000 worth of repairs needed. Now all of a sudden this person is going to look at you and say, well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you protect me? Why weren't you looking after my interests? The other thing that I'm very concerned about is the fact that we have an awful lot of buyers who are coming from California. Not that I don't love California. I was raised in California. I am a California transplant, but I moved here in 1985, so it's been a long time, even though I was born in Oregon, so I can say I'm a native Oregonian as well. But they have a litigious mindset. There's a reason why the E&O insurance that realtors have to purchase in California is so expensive. It's because every time something goes wrong, there's lawsuits. And Jane, you're nodding your head. You know that. You absolutely know it. And they are going to sue everybody. So this is why whenever I am seeing in a real estate transaction right now that someone's waiving the appraisal, waiving the home inspection, I'm sending to and telling the agents we need this buyer advisory signed. Because the advisory, send it to your clients, and the very last page of the advisory is a place for the buyer to sign. And then we have this in the file as part of our record. Yeah, Jane.
So also in California, part of the contract was a 10-page buyer and seller advisory.
Helpful.
Had to have it signed,
right.
No matter what.
Right.
And we don't have to have this signed.
No, we don't. It's a voluntary thing. However, if you wish to incorporate this into your business practice, I think it's advisable. It's a great risk management tool. You can even have the hyperlink as part of your email signature. I've had people do that. Not only the buyer advisory, but there's also a seller advisory. And these are great tools. And again, what Jenny was saying in here, it's true. If you scroll through it, look at this lead paint disclosure form. There are links here to get more information on inspection and abatement professionals, all kinds of stuff. So these are tools that any buyer could utilize to get themselves more informed about what's happening.
So that's a digital file. We can send it out and get it e-signed.
Yes. You can get it signed. I have it here. It's a link. I will send a copy of this to you guys all after our meeting today, as along with the link to the actual class we're having today as well.
The Wall Street Journal had an article saying that 30% of the people who are buying homes are showing buyer's remorse after purchasing them at this time.
I'm not surprised. A
So
third of people.
Some of those people would probably get legally upset.
So the Wall Street Journal's, for people who are listening online, Bill shared with us that the Wall Street Journal had a report or an article that said 30% of people.
30%, a third of the people buying, and heavy up on the millennials,
are having remorse.
They're being competitive on the buy.
Right.
And then they're remorseful after getting it.
Yep.
And as you said, the roof needs to be fixed.
Right.
They didn't know about roofs.
They waived all these things. And so again, this is a risk management tool. And I don't want us to have to use our insurance. None of us want to be sued. And so again, the more we can incorporate the tools that are available through our association, the better we are. Now, hopefully we won't have that sort of situation here in Central Oregon. I would hope not, but there are people out there who will be having buyer's remorse. I mean, they built up that house $200,000 over the asking price. And they've moved in, and now they're like, oh, I've got a lot of repairs I need to make in there, and I didn't recognize that because I waived my home inspection, or I waived my appraisal, and I put so much money into here, and now market has changed, and next year, who knows? We'll go into the market report next, but they may blame somebody for this, and who are they going to blame but the realtor represented them, as well as the seller, as well as everybody. You know, they'll blame everyone. So it's, again, this is just a risk management tool, and I just wanted to share this with you guys. Not to scare you, but just to let you know this is here as a resource, and I think it's a really, really good resource to incorporate into our transactions. So anyone online have questions on that? If not, okay, it doesn't look like anyone online has questions. So let's go ahead and move right away now into our report on what's actually happening in the market. So let's start right here. So here we go. So Zellman, one of the bigwigs in real estate here, is saying that this month's, this is going back to June, this month the overall home buyer demand rating equaled 86 on a 0 to 100 scale, down from 88 last month, and marking the first sequential decline since November. So in other words, home buyer demand is starting to shift. We're all feeling it in our market here locally, and this is across the country. So they're starting to see a little bit of a shift. There's not as much frantic demand as there has been. So the percent of respondents who say it's a good time to buy, look at June of 2020, it was 61%. Now in May of 2021, it's 35%. Things have shifted. We are starting to see a little bit of a shift. And the reason why, you think about interest rates have gone up a little bit, a lack of inventory, the bidding wars, people are getting realistic about that. And also, I like to think it's coming out of COVID too. The recognition that we need to have a house in another location where we can do our Zoom chats, business, maybe it's starting to change a little bit. And so it's interesting. It's not a massive significance yet, but it's starting to make some change. And I think this is significant how far down it is from June of last year. People think it's a good time to buy. So monthly showing time. Showing time is a tool that a lot of MLSs use, a lot of brokerages use to book showings. Actually, our Central Oregon MLS is looking at incorporating this type of tool even into our own MLS, and I'm on a committee to investigate these options. So I had a meeting on it last Friday. I'll have another meeting this next Friday, looking at a lot of different vendors that might be potential people for the MLSs to bring online as member benefits. But anyway, showing time index is showing how there was such a huge increase in showings in January, February, March, and April, and now we're starting to see a little bit of a dip. Compared to last year, of course, we were down a lot when COVID first hit, and then it went up a lot during the summer. But compared with this spring, my goodness, we all know how the frenzy activity that happened in spring has started to level off a little bit. Kind of interesting. So we're having buyer fatigue. And the reason why we have buyer fatigue is record price appreciation. Buyers are thinking prices just keep going up. And extremely low inventory. You know, inventory is still extremely low. And now the record high percentage of sales over list price, the bidding wars, bidding the price up. The record low days on market, and historically low mortgage rates. They're still really low, but they're not as low as they were. So the buyers, you know, I've talked with a number of brokers who said, I've written 6, 7, 8 offers to this buyer, and they're just giving up. They're tired. They just don't want to keep on getting their excitement going and then having it crushed. So this is the reality of buyer fatigue. Now, this is also something that you can think about when you're working with buyers who may be showing that they're having some fatigue. Expect a turn in the market in the coming months. It's already happening. We're seeing more inventory. The market's still hyper competitive. Yes, it is. But summer is when serious buyers commit 100%. Summer is our peak selling season. And you don't want to get left behind. And we're going to look at what's going to happen if you don't buy now, because now is still a good time to buy when you consider what's going to happen in the future. The prediction. So here is where we are with months of inventory of homes for sale. This is nationwide. So Buyer's market, of course, is when you have more than 7 months of supply. Seller's market, less than 6 months supply. Neutral is the 6 to 7 months of supply. And you can see, of course, the extreme buyer's market we had in 06 through 2010, 2011, 2012, as we're coming out of the recession. We had so much inventory. But now this is where we are. But we're starting to see a little bit of an uptick. So this is across the country, about 1.5 months of supply. Starting to see a little uptick, maybe getting closer to 2 months of supply. We are still in an extreme seller's market. As a result of that, and bidding war and prices going up so much, we can see how much American home equity has skyrocketed. So there has been $33,000 in the average gain in equity of mortgaged homes over the last year. So the current average equity of a mortgaged home is at $216,000. That's the average home across the country that has a mortgage on it. And then 38.2% of all homes are owned free and clear, no mortgage, no debt. So there has been an increase in equity of 19.6%, which totals over almost $2 trillion. I have a hard time fathoming a trillion. I know our government talks about here's a trillion here, a trillion there. It's 1,000 billions. It's a hard thing for me to think about, but increase in equity for homeowners, almost $2 trillion. That's a lot of wealth that people have tied into their real estate. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing that people are experiencing, people who are homeowners. And here's another thing too, and I like this phrase here. It looks like existing inventory is starting to inch up, which is good news for a housing market parched for more supply. The word parched kind of fits here in the West with our drought and our fires and everything like that. We are parched for supply. And that's from the chief economist at First American. Here's another great thing. We're seeing another significant week-over-week gain in inventory, which is great news for buyers. And supply is expected to improve, which will give buyers more options and help tamp down record high asking prices for existing homes. And that's from Lawrence Young, chief economist at NAR. So supply is expected to improve. We are starting to see this, more inventory hitting the market. So here's where we are as far as inventory levels for single family homes across the country. Back in January, 870,000 homes on the market. In May, we're over 1 million. So that speaks well for the increase as far as having opportunities for buyers. These are stats from NAR. The improvement we saw in new listings growth from May to June shows sellers are entering the market historically later in the season, which can mean we'll see home buying continue into the fall as buyers jump at new opportunities. Now, again, these are nationwide stats. Nationwide, most people start seriously listing in spring. Here in our Central Oregon market, it's summer where we typically see the biggest increase. Most of our sales happen in summer. In other parts of the country, it's wintertime. People who live in, people who are working in really hot areas, Florida, Arizona, their peak season is winter. That's when people are buying. So statistically speaking, it's spring across the country. But what we're seeing now across the country is there's an increase as we move into summer, which is unique to nationwide stats. Seller talking points. Don't be too unrealistic. So are sellers hitting the market with extreme seller pricing? Now, this is something you should have this discussion with your clients when they're taking a listing. Don't be too unrealistic on your pricing. But if you wait, you'll miss out on an extremely attractive market. And it's never been a better time to sell, and that is true. Price appreciation will moderate as rates and inventory rise later this year, and we're expected to see an increase in mortgage rates, and we are seeing an increase in inventory. So if you're waiting to list till later, right now is the very best time. List now rather than later. So what's the forecast for the second half of 2021? Here's what is predicted for mortgage rate projections. So in Q3, between Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, the Mortgage Bankers Brokers Association, and NAR, they are predicting an average mortgage rate of 3.17. Quarter 4, 3.37. Quarter 1 of 2022, 3.47, and quarter 2 of 2022, 3.57. So we're expecting mortgage rates to start creeping up. Again, still great rates, but even that quarter of a point, half a point, can make a difference in the buying power of some buyers. So if people are waiting to get off the fence to buy, here's what the experts are predicting is going to happen with mortgage rates. So now is a good time rather than wait. Also, this is what's projected for home price forecasts for 2021. So these are some of the good people who really do a good estimate. Zelman, the Mortgage Brokers Association, NAR, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac. And you can see that the average for all of them for 2021 is they're expecting an 8.9% increase in home prices for 2021. That's the average for all of them. This is significantly up over what it was earlier this year. If you remember, they were predicting a smaller increase, but the reality that we've had in the spring has shown, with increases up where they are, it's now like a 9% prediction as far as what's going to happen. Also, what's happening with builders? Part of the reason we've had such a demand is we just don't have enough homes available. And the reason why we don't have homes is there's just builders have not kept up with our rising population. They also haven't kept up with, there's a concern right now for builders too, because of lumber, labor, and land concerns. Land costs a lot, labor costs a lot, and lumber, we know what has happened to lumber supply. It's gone up. I mean, it's come down some, but it's still really high. So the cost to build a home is really expensive. And so builder confidence is going down a little bit. People are a little concerned in the building industry. Can we still build a product that buyers can purchase? Can we still make it, affordable enough that people can purchase a property with land and everything the way they are? So there's a little concern for them as well. But here's another, this is really good news. The percentage of mortgages in forbearances is decreased. Significantly down. These are the people in pre-foreclosure. And if you look back last year in May and June, we had 8.4, 8.3 people when COVID first hit, people who stopped making payments, mortgage payments. And look at what we are now. We're down to 3.9, excuse me. Yeah, 3.9 in June. So we have a big decrease in people who are undergoing foreclosure, which is great. And then if you look actually at those who are suffering in forbearance, share of mortgages in forbearance with less than 10% equity. So these are people who are really highly financed. Actually, with those who have less than 10% equity, there's only 4% of these people. So if they happen to, if they have to really sell prior to losing their home, they can still walk away with a little bit of money in their pocket. But if you add it to that, 18 months of deferred interest, they're at 9%, and then with 18 months of deferred mortgage interest as well as principal is at 13%. Again, a small percentage of people who are in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, who if they will actually lose money, very small. So if you are dealing with any client who has not been making mortgage payments or is entering into foreclosure, you may want to approach them about selling before they lose it to the bank, because they could still potentially walk away with some money in their pocket. This is also a month-over-month change in housing inventory, which I think is really interesting. There are people who are now in Oregon. If you look at our state, we are at between 15 and 20%, not the darkest blue, it's Idaho and Maine and New Hampshire, who sellers have undergone a lot of confidence and have put their homes on the market. So a big increase in inventory in Idaho, Maine, and New Hampshire, but Oregon and Montana, Utah, Colorado, Minnesota, these are states that have the next highest category. And so a lot of Oregonians are putting their homes on the market again, which is really good for our lack of inventory locally. I don't know what's going on with Hawaii. I don't know why they have not put their homes on the market, nor Connecticut. Connecticut's even worse than Hawaii, with no homes on the market. Okay, so here's people who are thinking about, what about a bubble bursting? And so the Atlantic has posted this thing here. The only places where McBride is the person he was connecting with, who's an expert in these things, told me he could envision a bubble bursting are locations where urban residents bought second homes in a panic, only to have the urban core quickly get vaccinated and normalize in 2021. So we might see some price declines in the second home areas, like small towns in New England and other beach towns on the East Coast. But even there, we just might see a shift where more people decide they like owning second homes. So the prediction for bubble bursting, and we do hear that, we get phone calls, when's the bubble going to burst, things like that. And really, the prediction is not that it's going to burst. Maybe in the second home, people who bought a second home want to panic, maybe, but I don't see any of that happening locally. Here's what actually happened in the second home market. So there was a huge second home market surge in 2020. So people who bought for their primary home, 9%. If you look at 2019 is the blue. So a primary home, a second home, 2% in 2019, and investment property, 22% as well. But in 2020, huge increase in the purchase of a primary home of 9%. The biggest one was a 27% increase in second home market. People wanted a second home to get to, maybe holding on to the primary home, but wanted to get the kids, get the family out of the urban core, get them to a place where they can actually live away from COVID, maybe more of a lifestyle. So there was a huge increase in that. Investment property died in 2020. You can look at that, down 9% compared with before. So home sales forecast to increase nicely in 2021 and do well in 2022. So here's the prediction as far as what is going to happen with home sales in 2021. In 2020, total home sales were 6.5 million. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the MBA all predict that we're going to have an increase over 2020 in 2021. And then look at 2022, still predicted to have a very good, comfortable rate of home sales in 2022. The Mortgage Bankers Association is really bullish on that. So let's see if that actually happens. So for JP Morgan, home buyers, interest rates are still historically low, though they are inching up. Housing prices have spiked during the last 6 to 9 months, but we don't expect them to fall soon, and we believe they are more likely to keep rising. So if you're looking to purchase a new home, conditions now may be better than 12 months hence. This is something to think about. We talked about mortgage rates are expected to go up. Prices are expected to go up. So if you have buyers who are thinking that they're going to wait until prices start dropping, the prediction is not that that's not going to happen. It's going to start leveling off, but we don't predict a big decrease. So headlines do more to terrify than to clarify, and that's true. You're going to hear, I mean, think about it, the news sells, it used to be the news sold the news. Now they're selling headlines, they're selling sensation, they're selling something that's going to get you to go there because it's scary. So this is very true. So home equity cashed out by refinance $1 billion. So think about people who think everything's going to burst like it did during the housing recession. This is 2025, 26, and 27, when people were flipping homes, when they were utilizing the equity in their property to buy a boat, to buy a vacation, to send their kids to college, all that sort of stuff. A lot of equity cashed out. Look at what happened. In first quarter of 2021, that's all we had. So if you extrapolate that 4 times, we're still below what happened in 2005, 2007. And well, maybe a bit above 2020, but this explains it a little bit better here. So home cashed out here. So this is the extrapolation. Look at the prediction. If we actually do that, compared with what happened, and recognize that home equity right now is higher than it's ever been. You know, what happened in 2005, 6, and 7? People were robbing people to pay Paul. People were getting loans that had no business getting loans. It was the no-doc loans, and they weren't necessarily just getting a primary loan, they were also getting a HELOC. They were, people called them Texas loans because everything was big and inflated. Texas loans, that idea. That's not happening now. When you go and get a loan nowadays, a mortgage, you're getting a mortgage. You're getting a primary mortgage. You're not getting a HELOC in addition to that mortgage. So for first quarter in 2021, the net equity extraction was $41 billion, or 0.8% of disposable personal income. This is nothing like the amount of equity extraction during the housing bubble as a percentage of disposable personal income. So 0.8% of disposable income, that's nothing. So the monthly mortgage payments significantly increased first part of this year, March and April. Look at that. And the reason why is people are buying more expensive homes. People are buying bigger homes and bigger, but also more expensive just because equity, because prices have gone up. So mortgage payments have gone up, but they still can afford them. You know, it's still, people who are getting mortgages still have to prove they actually can afford those properties. And still, here's this index we've been looking at before too, the affordable housing affordability index. NAR has been producing this since 1990, and it's really interesting. The higher the line there, the more affordable a home was. That's what's considered a more affordable time. So again, the most affordable homes came during the housing crisis. When people were giving away homes, you couldn't rebuild those homes at the prices that they were. But compared to where we are in 2020, here's today, we are still considered affordable compared to this time frame, or even back in 2018. So even though prices have gone up, the difference is really tied in with interest rates. Think about when we first dropped below 5% interest rate, we're like, oh my gosh, it's such a historic time. We've dropped below 5%. And now if we're, you know, around 3%, that's still phenomenal, even 3.5%. Historically, my first home, I think was paying 8-9% interest rate. My sister bought a home with 15 or 16% interest rates at one point in time. So historically, this is, I mean, that's back in these days where it was not affordable. You know, interest rates were so high. So historically, we are still considered at an affordable time. So these outsized increases have raised concerns that a home price bubble is emerging. However, conditions today are quite different than they were in the early 2000s, particularly in terms of credit availability. The current climb in house prices instead reflects strong demand amid tight supply, helped along by record low interest rates. And this is from Harvard, State of the Nation's Housing. So seriously, the studies that people have done, we're not in a housing bubble. The increase is because of demand with lack of supply. Now, if all of a sudden builders started building a massive number of homes and we had more supply, you can see things leveling off, maybe even dropping down if we get to a point of maybe 6-7 months of supply, but we're nowhere near that right now. And we'll go into our local market in a second. So what's at stake? Here's the forecast. So we're expecting an 8.6 appreciation in 2021. In 2022, we're expecting a 5% increase. And then in 23, 24, and 25, back to the 3%, which is normal. That's a normal market in which we expect to see homes appreciate maybe 3-4% per year. That's a normal thing. So for buyers who are waiting to buy until things get back to a more normal market, well, they could lose the opportunity to buy, if they bought now, say a $350,000 home, with that expected price increase. By 2026, that home will be worth $443,000 with an expected gain in equity of $93,000. So for buyers who are waiting until things normalize, they potentially can lose out on $93,000 of wealth generating equity in their home. So something to consider when you're talking with buyers who are thinking that, well, I'm going to wait till prices drop. We're not expecting them to drop. We're expecting them to maybe level out. Prices that are super inflated, seller pricing, I'm expecting those to correct, absolutely. But if you price a home right now for the normal market, I'm expecting the normal market will be reflected in the price that a buyer will pay for it. So let me get out of this and let's go to our other slide as to what's happening local. So let me start here. So here is where we are as a brokerage. So I'm comparing June of 2021 versus June of 2020. And June of 2020 was a great month. I mean, who would have thought when COVID hit that things would have happened the way they did? We had a great month. We had 21 listings. 2021, we had 29. So we're up 38% in listings. But look at the volume, double the volume. So $12 million worth of listings in 21. We're at $24 million worth of volume in 2021. Excuse me, 2020 versus 2021. Pending sales, we're up 16%. We had 51 in 2020, 59 in 2021. Again, the volume from 25 million in pending sales to 37 million. And closed sales were about even, down about 5%. But the volume, even though we're down a couple, we went from 22 million to 24 million. Again, that's a reflection of the increased price of our sales. Year to date, in 2020, we had 189 closings for $106 million. In 2021, we had 252 at 151 million closed sales. And that's just the price of the property. In some of these, we double-ended them. So I'll go over that in just a second too. So here again is the slide I use a lot to show what's going on for Bin Residential. And this is from MLS, and it reflects also Sun River. So you're looking at the number of listings. The the brown here is new listings. So we had a big increase in June of new listings hitting the market. Active listings were up and sold listings were up. Listing prices, as you can see, this is active median price. We're starting to level off a little bit on the active median price. We had a little bit of a dip, but we're back up to where we were earlier. New median list price is still going up, and new sold median price is going up. Absorption rates, here was the low, about half a month. Now we're back up to about a month. Sold to list ratio, things are selling over asking price, 104%. Days on market are down to about, we had a little uptick since May, not much, though, about 12 days on market. And price volume, look at that, we're just up tremendously, over 400 million in new list volume. Homes are expensive that are hitting the market. So this is my favorite thing to really do, and I blog about this all the time, is looking at 1 month versus the month a year ago. So this has been single family residential comparing June of 21 versus June of 20. And you can see, again, active listings, things sell quick. We are down almost 70% in active listings from 2020. New listings, we're up, which is great. Inventory has gone up a little bit, about 20%. New pendings, up 91% over a year before. Solds, up 9%. The sold volume is up 53%. So we're looking at how expensive the properties are. This is the two that I think is the most, the biggest thing to consider here. Look at the average sales price for a Bend single family residential home, $842,000. The median sales price at $649. A few months ago, we were at $651 and we dropped down about $620 last month. We're back up to $650, So both of these are up 40% over what they were a year ago. So when people ask me what's happening in Bend price, don't I wish, when I was getting ready for this, I went back and I looked at what we had done year to date, or I should say month to date, early part of July. And I was looking at our solds and I was like, we had homes that were selling in the threes, 380. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be nice again to see those? We're up 40%. And that is significant for people who are looking for buying something. Percentage of list price to sales price, we're at 105% of that, up almost 6.5%. And then months of supply, this is a good thing. We're almost up to almost a month's supply, just a little under a month's supply for Bend single family residential. The difference is the prices are up compared to what they were a year ago. But having more supply over time, the more supply we get, prices should start leveling off because there won't be as much demand. In fact, I was talking to Robert a couple days ago. He had a first-time home buyer, And he was so used to writing like 6, 7 offers for her first-time home buyers. He got accepted on the first time with his new first-time buyer. He was thrilled. He was like, we got a contract. He was very excited about that. So not used to that, you know.
Is that Brad for data for Sun River too?
No, I have in my own records. What I do is I get rid of Sun River. It's a totally different market. It's a lot of vacation homes. It's just not. So I just look at Bend proper, and what I try to do on my map is I'm outlining zip codes 01, 02, and 03. So I'm going out to Skyliner because believe it or not, that's Bend out there too, and so portions of that area, Tumalo is included in there. So again, it's Bend proper.
I think the Beacon report showed Sun River at 900,000 under sales price.
I'm not surprised.
903,000.
I'm not surprised. There is.
It could only be 10.
It could be. And again, there's been a demand for second homes too. You know, we all know that. So where's Bend? Where's Bend Premier? Right here. I don't know if you guys can see this very well. Yeah.
It's really tight on this one.
Yeah, you can't see. I've tried to stretch this out as hard as I can. We're right here, number 6.
Whatever you say it is.
So we are here in volume. Again, this is in MLS data at $161 million. And that includes, remember I told you how we were year to date, our sales in $150 million. At $161 million, that's because we double in some of these. And so that counts twice in MLS. So that's where we are. And I'm still thrilled to pieces when you consider that our office is, 50 brokers. And, a lot of these companies ahead of us have hundreds of brokers. And the production per agent is really good. So questions on any of this?
Client, buyer coming in who's asking me, is this appreciation baked in? Or is this the new bottom line on the pricing now? Or is it going to go down? My gut instinct is it's not going down.
I don't
So
think,
these price increases are baked in and they're going to continue, but maybe at a lesser trend.
if you look at the national trends, it looks like we're going to level off, but we're going to still have over time that 3% increase. That's the normal real estate market, assuming people still want to come to Bend and there's still a demand for people to live here. And if we can't keep up with the building the way it needs to be, I know there's a lot of new projects planned, a lot of different types of projects planned. And one of the things that came out of this last session of the state legislature, I don't know if you've heard enough about it. I'm going to see if I can get Jack to come and give us a continuing education class on an update of what happened. But one of the things that did happen is that they did approve ADUs on rural properties. And so that means that on rural properties, they will have the opportunity to have a second permitted.
They did approve it?
They did.
When did they do that?
In the last legislative session. Now it's up to each county to adopt it.
I think it's
Did you
general.
adopt it or is that on?
It's under discussion, but the prediction is that it will be. Yeah.
Talking about people still want to come to Bend. 3 of my client buyers over the last year have given up
They've given up.
completely.
Well, that's what we talked about, Jane, as far as buyer fatigue. I know that I've heard from a number of our brokers. We had people looking here, they were looking at Arizona, they were looking at different places. And when they would offer and they kept on getting turned down over and over, they just gave up. Will the increase in inventory encourage these people to come back? I don't know. I would think, but there's always new people coming too.
The
You can.
more we have here, the more will come here.
That's correct.
I have buyers that are looking at Bend in Idaho. Say Bend's getting too expensive. Then they went and looked at Idaho and they came back and said, oh shit. Idaho was like 44% according to land.
Yeah.
There's nothing available.
Yeah.
And they came back and said, Bend looks more affordable all of a sudden.
Well, it's all relative where you're from. That's right. And you saw on that one chart how much the increase in inventory has hit Idaho. It's in Idaho, Maine, and New Hampshire, the 3 highest states for increased inventory.
Idaho
So-
buyers are California based.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people who moved to Idaho are leaving California. That's true. Yeah, there's a certain amount of ideology connected with that.
Idaho doesn't have the capacity to absorb.
No.
Doesn't have the building capacity,
No.
doesn't have the existing inventory capacity.
Yeah.
So Yeah, they bounce there and bounce right back.
Right, right. It's interesting. I've heard of people who've moved to Idaho. I know of some of our clients who are leaving Oregon to go to Idaho. But then you still have people coming here from other places too. If you drive around downtown, you'll see Pennsylvania license plates. I saw a Puerto Rico license plate.
That's a tough drive.
It's a tough drive. I agree.
I think what I'm saying, I have clients that have moved here.
Uh-huh.
And they want to bring their family here.
Right.
So for everyone that doesn't want to come here, you've got people saying my daughter, my son-in-law, stuff like that. It's just kind of like the magnet effect.
Yeah, you want to bring your whole family. So
Yeah, they want to live here and they want their family to come here, and that's a strong draw.
right.
I think something that's going to be interesting to watch, one of my big concerns, and maybe it's because my husband has a company and he has 15 employees, is housing affordability.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, and seeing where that goes, because Redmond has shot up so high too.
Right.
I mean, I would be interested to look at the stats on Redmond, of course, I can pull those up, but, it's just the ability and where people are gonna live and how that's all gonna work, because even, all the subcontractors and all these people, they have to be able to afford to live in this area.
I agree.
And just the overall, long-term effects.
I agree. Housing affordability is a serious issue. One reason why they keep on trying to address it here locally, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out what we need to do, which really is bring in more land.
Well, I just saw a listing come on and they said it might qualify for events, more affordable housing. The city might allow it to come in.
It'd be good.
In the UGB, but they might allow it early
Well,
because of housing affordability.
Right, and that,
it's just going to be.
well, you heard how the state legislator approved that extra parcel of land off of Stevens Road. And the thing is, for us to incorporate more land into the city, remember, it requires an act of Salem to do it. The city may say we want to incorporate these areas, but it requires the state to say, yeah, we'll let you do it. And it's kind of a backward thing because most states don't have to run everything through the state capital to bring in more land into their urban growth boundary. But here in Oregon, it goes back to statewide land use control back in the 1970s under Governor Tom McCall. He didn't want urban sprawl. He didn't want Oregon to turn into Orange County. He wanted to protect farmland and all that. And so as a result, we have this system set up, and that's why it took 10 years for Bend to get some land incorporated into its urban growth boundary. And when their initial application was for 10,000 acres, when they finally approved it, it was 2,000 acres. So it was nowhere near what they wanted right from the start. So that's created this problem because we have so many people want to move here, yet the state won't let us do what we want to do. And they're also pushing smaller and smaller lots, higher density. So the kind of housing that people may want here, your single family house on 0.2 acre, it's harder to get. And you got to go to an older neighborhood, and then you have a house that needs some remodeling, but at least you have a little elbow room.
When I look at all the new developments out on the west side, you're not going to be able to touch those under 900,000.
That's correct.
And there's a new development going beside me called Tall Line, and they're 10,000 square foot lots.
They got 10,000 square foot lots, okay?
Because they were limited under UGB to 180 single family residences in that acreage.
Okay.
So what do you think you're going to be paying for a house on a 10,000 square foot lot where Chevron is?
Oh, well,
It ain't gonna be
high,
under- it's
well,
like-
high, over $1 million.
So
Yeah,
what's the, people that want affordable housing, they're going to have to move to prime building.
that's right.
Well, and it
Builders
is
aren't building
interesting,
these things.
the affordable housing, that they're almost like River's Edge,
Right.
saying that's going to be more affordable housing.
Right.
And then I think that's what they said about the polished development
Right.
behind off the Brickyard.
Right.
Over there off the Sheldon.
We're-
But it's like, but he's exactly right. I mean, it's going to be West Side prices. too,
Right.
And it's going to continue.
We're talking townhomes and condos, high density, stacking houses up there. And I think that's what they're going to have to do for affordable housing,
I
and
don't know if that's really affordable.
Yeah.
That's just more, but
Yeah.
it's not
yeah,
less. It's not less dollars.
I think those are going to become kind of the moderate, you can buy a townhome condo and even just having a small home on a single family lot central is going to be, it's going to be a new role in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
15 years, right?
things are definitely going that direction. I agree, Scott. Yeah, I totally
I mean,
do.
it's important to remember too, that there are places, without a UGB that had a high demand over decades, a lot of places in California, having that land didn't necessarily result in affordability too, right? So the answer is probably both, right? Density and expansion. We tend to fall into these camps, I think, in this town. And I'm always kind of trying to, let's get kind of both, right?
Well, when I moved from Chicago, there was areas in Chicago I could afford to live in. There's areas I couldn't. It was just as simple as that. Couldn't afford Glencoe. Some other areas, North Shore, you can't live there, so don't look there. Now, people say Bend is all one place. It's not.
No.
Breaking up into, you can't afford the west side, you're gonna have to go east. Burns is a good option.
That's a long,
commuter line.
I was gonna say, that's a long commute for Burns. Yeah, Yeah.
Look at the people
Well.
commuting from Sacramento to San Francisco.
or maybe Zoom, internet, live out in Burns.
I've had a couple, actually just personal contacts, I had this fear of like, people bought so just kind of like in a panic and summer, like, oh, we're working remotely, let's buy, and then what kind of attrition are we gonna have? Oh, we didn't think that through.
Right.
But I've had a couple personal contacts that now have more clarity on the long-term remote work balance. Now, they're really thinking it through. Now they're, hey, how's Bend? I feel like living in Bend.
There you go.
We now know long-term we do have that as an option.
Right.
And I think there'll be some people in the other direction too, right?
Oh, and I agree. I agree very much. As long as people can still afford to pay our prices, they're going to still want to be here. And there's still going to be a demand for housing. And I guess the question is, how high will our prices go? I don't know.
I think we definitely, you said 2 years ago, that we shifted multi-million-dollar homes to Bend.
Yeah.
And here it is.
Yes, it's here.
And I really isn't. I
No.
don't see any bare land on the west side is gonna stick on it.
You know how many $1 million plus listings we have right now? We have an awful lot of $1 million plus listings within our own brokerage. And a lot of them are in contract. And, I can remember the first time coming out of the recession, we had any listing in Bend over $1 million. It's like, it's $1 million listing, my goodness. It's all relative to where we are right now. I don't know if the typical Bendite, though, having lived here as long as we have, I can remember when we all called Bend poverty with a view. And people lived here not to earn money, but because they loved the lifestyle. And we knew the doctors and the professionals who lived here were here for that same reason. They could make far more money in a big city, but they wanted to live here. And so poverty with a view is what we were known for.
Nowadays,
It's not.
remote, you
Yeah.
can make a hell of a good income.
Yeah.
living in Bend. Why wouldn't you do that?
Absolutely. So does anyone have anything else, haves or wants, or any other comments that they want to contribute or talk about? I know, Tina?
Question, I don't know who maybe know more about the ADU in the rural area. Wasn't it certain zonings too? It wasn't like EFU zoning.
I think that I'm not 100% sure, but I think they did leave that up to the county.
Right.
It's gonna have to be within, like one of the key things is gonna have to be within 200 feet of the prime residence.
Correct.
People build ADUs in the corner of the active.
Right.
It's within
Right.
100 feet.
Right.
900 feet.
900 feet.
Minimum number, you can't go over 900 square feet.
Correct.
I thought it was like RM10.
Yeah, I'm wondering if EFU, because the whole irrigation issue, I think.
Yeah, I know that was a discussion. I don't remember.
Yeah, I know we should be getting directions from the county once it's adopted, and I'm pretty confident that the current makeup of the county commissioners, they will be adopting this. No, they're discussing it, and they'll come up with their regulations about what they think is most important.
Should be a lot of listings for houses that
Yeah.
have ceramic kilns in them in the county.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody had a ceramic kiln. It looked a lot like a stove you'd buy at Costco.
Yeah.
So now they're gonna be street legal.
Yeah, well, if they're under 900 feet, right? Yeah, so, yeah, another option for people in rural property, and there's been a lot of demand for that too. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Any other haves or wants? Yes.
I have a buyer need for something under 700,000, but her and her husband want to kind of partially retire here. They were looking initially at a place like Eagle Crest where they could get a townhome and possibly rent it out, but they have an RV, so Eagle Crest actually does have a spot you can park your RV for apparently an unlimited amount of time. And then they have RV storage, which there is a waiting list for. So I was looking into that, but just other things. you know, basically they want the feeling of being able to enjoy coffee with a view of something, not just in like water, a golf course, something to where it's not just a fence line with a. So if anyone, I mean, I've been trying to keep my eyes open for a situation, I feel for them, but anybody
Under 7, you said.
under 7. Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be, it could be like a townhome.
A townhome or condo.
They do it
Okay.
with sisters.
Yeah. I actually sent them a property in Sisters.
That's good.
And as I said, in the condos.
Yeah.
They have RV parking, and on the west side, you have views.
That's option.
Their HOAs are ridiculous.
They are.
Does anyone online here have any questions?
They pay for everything.
But when you pay that, it covers your cable. TV, your
Anyone
water,
online have a
power,
question or
light,
anything like that?
everything.
A comment?
So as a return person, I had somebody buy one for me, and she ran the numbers, and it's cheaper for me to live here than it is to own a single family home in Bend for the same price, because everything's included. And she said, when the grandkids come, they go play in they can do all the recreational.
Mhm.
She penciled it out, they're smart lady.
Well, talking to Coeur d'Alene, my daughter's a broker in Coeur d'Alene, if anybody does have clients.
Great. Anything else, guys? And anyone online questions? So I don't see anything here. Just that first, yeah. Okay. All right. If nothing else, thank you, everybody. And feel free to ask me questions. Emily and Brittany and I are here to help you with whatever you have.
It'd be great to get Jack back.
Yeah. I'm going to try to line up Jack. I'm going to try to line up Jack. I think it'll be great.